Welcome to the Ideal Protein Introduction to Phase 1. This is a deep dive, if you will, of the Phase 1 folder, the green folder. So if you can pull that out, we'll be referencing the documents in that. So first, let's talk about mindset. I don't want you to think that you're going into this feeling a sense of deprivation because you're going on a diet. You need to think about it being empowered with this. I'm choosing not to have that right now. If you are confronted with some items that might be tempting, and realize that you're changing your lifestyle for better health. So what is a coach? The coach you're going to be working with is really going to be your accountability partner. They're there to help educate you about what are your best choices and how are you going to get your best results, help you troubleshoot along the way, give you encouragement, and help you understand the behavioral changes that you're going through during this process. Hopefully that's going to inspire confidence in you and some positive energy. And they're going to be very authentic and understand that they're going to show kindness and empathy, but they may have to have some tough conversations with you during the way and realize that they just want you to have an open line of communication. What are the expectations of you? Please be sure to come to each appointment with your completed food journal and complete your pre-order to your clinic and identify which way that is handled, whether it's through our app or by email. The coach should be able to tell you how you should handle that. Be respectful of the 15-minute appointment. That's about your journey and what's happening in your day and what you're eating and what kind of foods are you preparing. Keep your weekly appointments. It's necessary so that you have your accountability to yourself as well as the coach. And let them know if you do have any other questions about changing your appointment or any questions about the protocol, because we want to help us make an impact on obesity. A couple things about the success agreement that you'll be asked to sign when you do go into the clinic is to commit to abstaining from 100% from all alcohol while you're on the Ideal Protein protocol. You want to be sure that you keep your weekly appointments. Maintaining a daily food journal, whether that's in the book or in the app, is an extremely important element to success in this program, in your phase 1 and throughout the phases, the different phases. Following the phase 1 requirements is really important so that you get your best results. You're going to have an adequate amount of Ideal Protein packets, some of your own whole protein choices, as well as some vegetables, and be sure that you have your intake of water and supplements. Those are all important pieces of the protocol. You want to be sure to keep an open and honest relationship with your coach. Commit to transitioning to all of the phases once your goal is met. And that's usually in stabilization between 6 and 8 weeks is what we suggest. Phase 3, in the maintenance phase, we have 17 visits that you can have over a year's time frame that will help you to understand how to educate yourself and learn how to keep that weight off. Some things to expect in your first 7 days. You may be hungry, especially in those first couple of days as your body eases itself into ketosis. You're allowed to have up to 4 Ideal Protein packets in that first week per day. And be sure that you consider the daily optional items, which we're going to review in the presentation in a few moments. You may get a headache. Be sure that that is something you take care of, and it could be just a lack of hydration or lack of sodium issue. So your fixes for that might be 1/3 of teaspoon of sea salt, not the ideal salt, but 1/3 of teaspoon of sea salt in 8 ounces of water, and drink that. You could add in some IP water enhancers, and be sure to discuss your medications with your provider that may affect the sodium levels. If you're experiencing carb withdrawals, you could take a warm bath. That's where and then that extra pack of IP food might come in. Be sure that you keep in mind you're only allowed 1 restricted food per day, and we'll identify those later on as well. And adequate water intake is very important for the protocol to work properly. You might experience some nausea and fatigue too as your first couple of days, as your body is getting into that ketogenic state. And experiencing some low blood pressure, you just want to be sure that you take a 1/2 teaspoon of salt, add that to some water, and drink that, as well as increasing your whole overall water intake. Be sure to look out for signs of low blood sugar as well, and you can discuss those with your coach about what symptoms that may be. Some things to also expect is a change in your breath as you are releasing ketones in your breath and in your urine. With regard to constipation, we don't want you to take any over-the-counter laxatives or commercial fiber supplements. That's there to help keep you regular, but not to fix the problem of constipation, even the sugar-free ones. And be sure that you review your night before checklist each day. Did I drink all of my water? Did I consume all of my oil, all my vegetables? And did I take a total of the 4 CalMags? In this case, too, if you are using the CalMag Chews as a substitute, you would only use 2 of those per day. So if you could pull out your phase 1 sheet right now, it looks like this on the left-hand side, and we're going to take a closer look at all of those different sections. So in the first top part of the phase 1 sheet, you're going to notice that it's broken up into the different times of day that you're eating. So breakfast is going to be one of the IDO protein foods. That could be one of the omelets or other breakfast choices that we have available. Or you may want to just have a drink if you're on the go, but you do want to make sure that you have one IDO protein food within an hour of waking up. I want to note here that coffee and tea are allowed, caffeinated or decaf, whichever you prefer. But if you do have caffeinated coffee or tea, you want to make sure that you just replace that with the same amount of water. You're allowed to add 1 ounce of your own milk or half and half to that as well. Or we also have an optional vanilla drink that you might be able to, or cappuccino, or even the chocolate I've seen some people use to substitute that to put in your coffee as well. For lunch, you're going to have 1 IDO protein food, and that could be one of our lunch items. We'd like to guide you toward those types of choices that are going to be better for you in the long run to learn these new habits or just enhance the habits you already have. You will be required to have 2 cups of the select vegetables per day. We're going to identify those in just a moment. And I want you to note here, this is an optional item for both lunch and dinner. It's unlimited raw vegetables and lettuces. These are there to help keep, really it's the volumetrics principle, to keep volume in your stomach for not a lot of nutritional value. So be sure to consider that during your lunch and your dinner. Dinner is the meal that you're going to be eating on your own. So you're able to have your own protein source. That's 4 to 6 ounces of whole protein, an additional 2 more cups of the select vegetables. And again, I do suggest to have the unlimited salad or raw vegetables at dinner time. If you happen to not want to have such a large portion of meat for dinner, you could end up splitting that and having some of it at lunchtime or some of it at dinner. Or let's say your entire office is going out for lunch, you might swap those meals and have that dinner meal at lunchtime and then have your other IDO protein food at night as your dinner option. Your last item of the IDO protein food for the day will be your snack item. And that again can be one of the bars, it can be the chips. We have a lot of different types of savory or sweet items for you to choose from. One thing I didn't mention, but I'm going to point out here is the different supplementation. You do have a few things to take first thing in the morning, the multivitamin and 1 potassium. You only take 1 potassium per day. As you head throughout the day, you're going to be looking at taking a multivitamin at lunch as well as one of the omega-3s that you take. Dinner time is 2 CalMags. And again, that would be 2 CalMag pills or 1 CalMag chew, depending on which option you have. Then you've got also another omega-3 at dinner time. And then you'll take the remaining calcium at snack time. And that's 2 IDO protein ones if it's the CalMag pills or 1 if it's a chew. The supplementation is spread out throughout the day for a reason. It's for absorption purposes. So be sure that you do adhere to that schedule. Some very important things to add in that are daily items would be your 2 teaspoons of select oils, not tablespoons, teaspoons. So make sure you pay attention to measuring. 64 ounces of water is a minimum that we suggest that you consume to help with your body's process of elimination. And there's that salt, that 1/4 teaspoon of the ideal salt. So make sure that it doesn't exceed that. It's 1/4 teaspoon of the ideal salt or the sea salt. In certain cases, there may be medications that you're taking that would preclude you from using the ideal salt. So be sure to discuss with your coach the different medications that you may have. Let's look at the unlimited or the vegetable categories, and we'll start with the unlimited raw vegetables. You're going to notice that there's a lot of different lettuces here, and there's a few other vegetables like bok choy or cactus, celery. Down here, you're going to find mushrooms, radishes, and spinach. So most of these other choices are just different types of lettuces, and they're all very good options for you to, again, give you that volume in the stomach to keep you full. Here are the select vegetables that are shown on that other portion of the top portion of the phase 1 sheet. So you're going to remember you're going to have 4 cups per day, and that's either split up 2 cups at lunchtime and 2 cups at dinner. Please be sure to measure before cooking. The first piece of homework you might take is to go find yourself a food scale. We have one in our IDO protein clinics. That's a great option for you to use because it does have the quantities printed on the front of that. You don't have to use the IDO proteins food scale. You could have your own that you can buy in other types of places. But I do encourage you to please measure all of your different vegetables and meats. Let's look at the different choices that you have available here to use. Asparagus, bamboo shoots, bean sprouts, different colors of bell pepper, bok choy, broccoli, cabbage, all different types of colors. Lots of different other options here. Cauliflower, celery, chard, chayote, which is really good to make in a different type of desserts. Cucumbers, dill pickles. Pay attention to if those dill pickle jars have any carbs in them, and you want to make sure you note that in your journal. Fennel, that's a really great vegetable to have with arugula. Green onions. I do want to point out here that green onions are the only ones that you can cook with. If you note here down on this bottom line, onions are shown as raw only, so any purple, white, or yellow onions need to be only consumed in a raw format. I'm going to get back over here to the hot peppers and kale, kohlrabi, mushrooms. Again, touch on the onions that are raw only, radishes, lots of different other choices, spinach, turnips, and zucchini. One thing I want to make sure that you've noted is that both the celery, mushrooms, and radishes are shown on the unlimited list as well as the select vegetable list. If you end up consuming them raw, you may have them in unlimited quantities. If you end up using them as part of your select vegetables, it's important that you do count them. So make sure you pay attention to how you're cooking. If you would like to have some of these occasional vegetables, just know that there's only a maximum of 4 cups allowed per week. You always must measure before cooking, so pay attention to that as well. Particularly, these are a little bit higher in carbohydrates, so you want to make sure that you do measure, and you're only allowed up to 4 cups the entire week. These also are not in addition to the select vegetables. These are in replacement of those. So if you have 3 cups of select vegetables one day and 1 cup of the occasional vegetables one day, that's fine, but just know that you only get 3 more cups for the rest of the week. So that would include your green beans, Brussels sprouts, eggplant, hearts of palm, jicama, leeks, rutabaga, snow peas, spaghetti squash, tomatillo, and tomatoes. Let's move on to talk about your whole protein source options. Please note that no frying or breading is allowed, and you want to make sure that you are weighing this as well before cooking. Lots of different options here with fish, giving you a great source of omega-3s. So cod, flounder, grouper, halibut, mahi-mahi. You can eat this frozen or fresh, whatever you have access to. Red snapper, salmon, sea bass. Lots of different options here under the fish. We also have some seafood options here with regard to clams or crab, crawfish, lobster, mussels, oysters, scallops, scampi, shrimp, and squid. Please make sure that none of those can be dipped in butter. That's not allowed during the phase 1 process. With regard to your beef choices, it's going to have to be the leaner cuts of beef. There is no ribeye here mentioned for a reason. It is a fattier cut of meat. So you're going to have options of either filet mignon, flank steak, ground beef, extra lean ground beef. So please make sure you look at those labels. A lean roast, round or rump steak, sirloin or tenderloin. With regard to ground beef, I'm going to mention this now because if you happen to be out, if you're stuck in traffic one day or you end up staying longer on a visit and you're coming home and everyone in the car is starving and you have to run through a fast food restaurant, that's a one-off option to maybe get a ground beef burger in a place like that. It's probably not going to be using the most extra lean beef, but keep in mind, you don't get it with the bun and the ketchup and the cooked onions or the cheese. You need to have that lettuce wrapped. The onions need to be raw. You don't get to use the ketchup. And you can use some just raw onions if that's something that you prefer. So just be careful about you doing that very often. With regard to poultry options, you are going to do best with your chicken in a skinless form. And that does even include those chickens that you buy that are already prepared in the store. A lot of times they have a lot of oil that is slathered on the outside of the skin that soaks into the meat. So you want to make sure that that is not something that you do pick it up. It's again, something when it's an emergency situation, you don't have something prepared, you've got to feed your family or yourself with not a lot of time. So choosing one of those things that's already prepared is something that we only want you to do every now and then. We're really hoping that you're going to be able to start to cook and be able to be in control of what kind of oils and spices and things that you'll be using on your protein sources. If you'd like to have eggs, you are allowed to have up to 6 eggs. That replaces that 6 ounces of protein that you're allowed. And 2, 3, or 4 of them can be whole, with the remainder of them being egg whites. This could also be something that you could split. And if you're interested in having maybe some of your eggs or hard-boiled eggs on a salad at lunch, you could just reduce the amount of protein that you have at night for your dinner portion. So you are allowed to distribute that throughout the day if necessary. I got some other options here under different types of birds, turkey that you can have. With regard to pork, you're going to be best having your lean ham or pork tenderloin. Also veal, you've got several different options here. So just make sure these are the choices that you're using, or some other wild game choices you can have. Vegetarian options, if that's your preference, just note that this is not necessarily a one-to-one replacement. You've got 1 cup here, which is the 6 to 8 ounces as an option of tofu, rather than the 4 to 6 that's shown on the phase 1 sheet. If you're interested in having the vegetarian options from your clinic, please be sure to ask them to give you that, because we do have a list that's a little bit more expanded if you are vegetarian. So let's take a look at the seasonings that you're allowed to use. And this is where you get, I guess, some more creativity with your cooking, if you will. Apple cider vinegar is allowed you see that at the very beginning of this list, and I'm going to show you here at the end. You've got white vinegar, so no balsamic or red wine vinegar is allowed. Lots of other seasonings here. Just make sure that if you're having capers, you limit that to 2 tablespoons per day. You're able to put cinnamon, maybe that's in a cereal or in your coffee. A lot of fine herbs or fresh herbs, whether they're fresh or dried, is fine. Lots of options here. Cilantro's great, fresh on a salad. Mint, you can stick in some water. Parsley, oregano, rosemary, sage. These are all things that are going to help to wake up your palate. Garlic is allowed whether it's in raw or cooked format, but be careful with ginger. Ginger, we're talking about the rooted ginger, not ginger you would find at a sushi restaurant, just to be clear. You are allowed to have a lemon or a lime, a total of 1 per day. This is something you can use either in your water, you can use it with your salad dressing or your oil on your salad. You can cook with it on fish if that's something that you would like. So there's lots of options with how you can use that, but be sure that you only limit that to 1 lemon per day, or 1 lemon or lime per day. Lemongrass, hot mustard, and hot sauce. Just please pay attention to the label and what is the serving size. Because some certain different ones, sriracha's one that has carbs, it's 1 teaspoon per 1 carb per teaspoon. So if you are someone that likes hot sauce, just be careful to pay attention to that if it has a food label. Onion powder is limited to 1 teaspoon per day. You are allowed to have sea salt, provided you don't have some restriction from your physician. And please note that soy sauce is limited to 1 tablespoon per day. If you get spices that are MSG free, they're not going to have any carbs. So that might be something for you to take a look at. And tamari sauce, which is a gluten-free option of soy sauce, is also limited to 1 tablespoon per day. Regarding oils, there are several that are heat stable. Avocado oil, canola, not your best choice. So if you can avoid that, that would be best. Grapeseed has a higher smoking point, so it's better to cook with, and then olive oil. So if you're using olive oil, just don't use that under very high heat. Rice brands, safflower, sesame, and sunflower, all good options in different flavors. So whatever appeals to you. Please note that some that you are able to use that are cold only would be flaxseed, hemp seed, and walnut oil. So now we're going to just take a look at some of the seasonings, because I really do want you to pay attention to the different items that you may find on the shelf. Note too, the serving sizes. So this is 1/4 teaspoon, and it may say that it's got 0 calories or 0 fat and 0 carbs. But here's the thing you need to pay attention to as well is the ingredients. It does note that sugar is listed here. So we're going to tell you that's not something that you'd be allowed to have. So pay attention to the different types of seasonings that you're thinking to use. Okay, so now we're going to move on to some highly recommended items, but not required for the program. And that would be first off our antioxidants, which are going to help you to fight the effects of free radicals from oxidative stress in the body. And that's exposure to pollution, chemicals, lotions, different detergents, different things in our environment. What I highly recommend, but is not required, are these branched chain amino acids. These are specifically formulated to help you to preserve your lean body mass while on protocol. If you can notice up here in this line, that suggests 1 to 2 per day in weeks 1 through 4 as the body becomes keto adaptive. Additionally, our enzymes are a fantastic formula that to help improve your digestion by breaking down large molecules so that they're in smaller, more absorbable particles. And if you suffer from gas, cramping, or bloating, this might be something for you to consider. Lastly, our Flora Health Max can help you aid in digestion and help you maintain good gut health, which is important for overall body health as well. Some daily optional items that you can consider, but I want you to think about these as optional, meaning you don't necessarily want to have them every day. This is troubleshooting options and are not considered daily freebies that you expect to consume each day. So these are the IP water enhancers. We have 5 different flavors now. You can have those in unlimited quantities. You can have up to 4 servings of artificially sweetened beverages. And we'll talk about those in a minute. So that would include your sweetener for your coffee. So potentially that's either stevia or sucralose. And you always want to look to the label for the serving size. 1 cup of shirataki or konjac noodles. Most clinics will sell our konjac noodles that have 2 in a pack that are in 1 cup increments. So that would be 2 servings for you to have 1 per day, remember. You're allowed to have 2 cups of fat-free broth. And that could be vegetable, chicken, or beef. Just make sure that it's fat-free. Bone broth is excluded. And we'll talk about that in just a moment. You're allowed to have 2 tablespoons of the isoprotein dressing and sauces. So that could be either on your salad. You could use it for a marinade. You could use it 1 tablespoon for one salad and 1 for the other one. It's interchangeable throughout the day. And here is another reference to that CalMag Chew. I know the CalMag pills were shown on the original phase 1 sheet. So that's 4 CalMag pills. If you decide to go with the option of the chew, you only take 2 of them per day. So you would do 1 at dinner and then 1 at snack time in place of the 4 CalMag tablets. Restricted items, please pay attention to this. They're labeled on the outside of the box with an R in a circle, and they're also labeled on the individual packet, but you are only allowed to have 1 item per day. So that can be something that you can substitute as a breakfast item, a lunch item, or the snack item. You can have half of it at lunch earlier in the day and save a piece for later. It doesn't matter. You can mix and match with all the isoprotein foods. Some things to remember. Again, these are in addition to your intake of the daily water and vegetables. You want to just help understand that these are to help manage your hunger, particularly in that first week when you're getting into ketosis. This is another explanation further of that, and you can get this document from your coach if you'd like to see this in more detail. One thing I highly recommend is the ido-protein garlic parmesan croutons. This is something you could add to a salad. It's crunchy, it gives you a little bit of flavor, but you're only allowed to have one per day. So this is your restriction with regard to the shirataki noodles. There is a recipe on the side of the box, or you can find some online. These are the IP dressings. We have several dressings for you to choose from. Several water enhancers, and we've added a new one, black cherry, since this slide was prepared. But again, look for the restricted foods. Regarding why you can't have bone broth, it's an additional protein source. And so we don't want you to have an excess amount of protein, because excess protein sometimes gets stored in the body as fat if you don't use it. And so you want to just be very careful about not using bone broth, but just regular fat-free broth of either chicken, vegetable, or beef. Some artificially sweetened beverages, you're allowed to have 4 of those per day, but you need to be very careful and pay attention to serving sizes. So now we're going to look at a few different labels. Walden Farms is another product that is approved to be used with the ido-protein program, and they do have several salad dressings. They have multitudes of either jams or jellies or barbecue sauces of different flavors, but you need to pay attention to even pancake sauce, pancake syrup, and a lot of different options. But please pay attention to serving sizes, because that is 2 tablespoons is 1 serving. So you're allowed to have those 4 extra servings, right? Or if you're looking at the dressings, like our dressings, you get 2 tablespoons. So this is 2 tablespoons. So this would be, your allowance per day. However, look at the syrup. It's a 1/4 cup. So just make sure that you're paying attention to the labels as you're using these different types of products. Everything counts. Regarding any kind of sweetener, this is the label for this sweet leaf stevia here. So note that it's 1/2 gram, and there's 2 per packet. So that's basically 1 gram, 0, 0, 0. And just look at the ingredients. Okay, so that seems fine to be using, but you want to also look in comparison to something else. So this is a different type of product that you've got. I believe this is the sucralose, and you've got less than 1 carb per serving, but pay attention to what the ingredients are. You can still use this, but please pay attention to the serving sizes. So you get to 4 packets of any of this per day. What's not allowed? Hate to talk about this, but this is very important for you to understand to help you to achieve your best results. There's a few things that we're going to take away from your program right now. So that's no pasta or potatoes other than ido-proteins rotini pasta, no rice, legumes, so no nuts, no beans, and no breads or cereals. No vegetables other than those included on the phase 1 sheet. So look over here, that would include carrots, corn, peas. No sweet peas or corn are listed there. They're very dense in carbohydrates, so just not allowed right now. No fruit or fruit juice, and no commercial vegetable juice. So if you have something that's been pureed into a container, you're not allowed to have that, because it most likely has some sort of preservative in it. No cheese or dairy, other than the exception of the 1 ounce of milk that you're allowed, or half and half in your coffee, and that's per day only 1 ounce. So if you'd like to have something that's a little bit more sweetened, or if you want more of a latte look in your coffee or tea, you might consider using the vanilla drink that we have as an ido-protein food as an option. No nuts are allowed, no soda, no candy, no chocolate bars, no chips, other than ours, of course. No alcohol. Again, that's a very dangerous thing potentially for you. No cheating. And we really wish you the success in staying the course. We do, just because these are shown up here in the right corner, I'm going to mention them. Avocado is a fantastic source of fat, but for the purpose of ido-protein's protocol, when the body consumes more fat, you're going to burn that fat first rather than your own. So we will bring back nuts and avocado in phase 2 in stabilization. So we'll be able to help you to integrate that back into your diet if you're looking for that. In the phase 1 folder, you're going to see that 7-day guide, which is a fantastic opportunity for you to not only identify in the inside cover what your non-scale goals are, but also to be prepared. What's your checklist for the next day coming? So please look at this as a guide for you. It's going to help you to troubleshoot some hunger. If you're feeling that caveman response where your body's trying to force you to bring in more carbs, Very important for you to review that on a daily basis. Don't try and read it all at once. Just do it one day at a time. But look at that night before checklist so you can feel prepared and ready and confident for your next day. The ketogenesis paper is very helpful for you to understand how the body works. We have three sources of energy to help us to survive. But the quickest one is always going to be the sugar. So you want to make sure you understand this process so that when you're confronted with any of these types of foods, you might think, yeah, no, not right now. I'm not going to have that because I know it's going to interrupt my fat burning process. We want to help you to create that fat burning machine within your own body. This vegetable chart is an incredibly helpful tool, especially if you're using a scale that's other than the idle proteins food weight scale, because it gives you some measurements in ounces and in grams so that you can be very accurate with what you're measuring and consuming. I'm not saying that broccoli is going to make you gain weight, but if you have too much of it potentially because you aren't measuring, it may prevent you from having the most successful losses that you can get. This shopping list is on the back of the guidelines, and it's there to help you if you're sending someone else out to shop for you, or if you are going to a restaurant, you could take a picture of this, and everything shown on here is phase 1 compliant. So you can take a look at this as well as any menu that you're going out to see or visit so that you feel prepared and confident as you head into that type of a meal. This roadmap is also included in the folder that just outlines the 3 different phases of the idle protein protocol, because it is not just about weight loss where you're resetting the body. It's important to understand, to learn to stabilize and know how to keep that weight off. And then as you are identifying what your macro code is, you'll take that into maintenance with you so you can navigate that outside food environment with confidence. We want to help you to manage your hunger. If we can do that, you're going to help to manage your weight regain. This fiber document is something that you can get from your coach. It is not included in your folder, but if you're interested to hear more about that or read more about that regarding the konjac noodles and some sweeteners that we use and daily planning, that's something that you can ask for. This document as well, which is just identifying which ones are the unlimited raw vegetables, what are the select vegetables, what's occasional vegetables, and if you cook them, what do I have to, how do I treat those? Because remember, we mentioned that there are some unlimited vegetables that are also on the select vegetable list, that if you do cook them, you need to count them towards your 4 cups of select vegetables per day. So regarding journaling, this is the most important thing that you can do, is to help your coach understand what you're eating. So this is what it looks like. You can journal in the book or you can journal in the app. It is, there's some studies that show that if you're just checking off these boxes, it's very helpful and very successful and you feel like you've accomplished something. But please make sure that you give some detail. Don't just say 2 cups of vegetables. The coach needs to know what kind of vegetables, and particularly in the case of onions, was it raw or was it cooked? So try and mention that there in this column. You do want to identify which are your IP foods, and just making sure that you're checking all these boxes. You're having your vegetables, you're having your oil, you're doing your 4 to 6 ounces of your own protein, the water, and absolutely the supplementation is so important. If you have any of those extra items like the Walden Farms barbecue sauce or the dressings, please be sure to note that. And if you're doing any type of exercise, that is important to let your coach know as well. Make sure you're journaling and saying, I'm having a headache. What do I do? You might find some of those answers in the 7-day guide, but your coach will be able to troubleshoot with you as well. So if you're measuring at home, or if you're using the scale at home, we want to just go through this a little bit so you understand how this process works. Or if you might be doing this in your clinic with our scale. Some clinics do use different types of scales as well. So whatever they are familiar with or what's comfortable, but you would then hit this plus sign. What will come up is this screen. Then you would then hit the plus sign here to say, look, I'm ready to take my weight. Maybe you're being coached remotely. So this is something that you'll need to understand how to do. It's going to come up with this information. The scale is ready to sync. You step on the scale and you wait till it gets through to 100%. So you're going to see these bubbles working. 6, 10, 20, 70. Please stay on until you actually get through that full 100%. This is incredibly important that you gather all the data. You don't just want to capture weight. Weight is not the entire picture. What's important is that you identify all of the biometrics in there. That's BMI, body fat percentage, You're going to have your lean mass, your muscle mass, and your hydration. So it's very important to get all of them during this process. A lot of times we get these questions, will I be able to exercise? We suggest that if you are currently exercising, what's your routine? Discuss that with your coach. Are you doing spinning or Bikram yoga? Those are very high intensity exercises. So you might want to just take that down a notch as far as the intensity level. But this is not necessarily the time to start going to the gym and currently beginning the exercise program. We suggest that you burn the fat first and then get back to the gym. If you want to maybe do some things at home, you can certainly start with that and moderate exercise like either floor exercises, mat Pilates, yoga, but not the high intensity exercises. So consult your coach about that as well. I don't know if you've heard this term of idle-protein babies, but they certainly do exist. And, that's a wonderful thing because we've been able to help people that could not conceive because they were carrying a lot of weight in their middle, be able to. But fat stores estrogen. So as you're burning fat, that's released into your system as a woman. So you just want to be careful. If you're using a contraceptive, please just use a second form of protection so that you can just be prepared. So in order to pre-order on your app, you're going to have this symbol up in the right-hand corner of that app. If your clinic does not enable this, you will not see that. So they may have some other method, but you just want to ask them, how is it that I can order my food? If you do have this option, which I think is incredibly helpful to expedite your appointment, but also focus on your education during the appointment and not just ordering food, you're able to go through and look at all the different items. You may see something that's out of stock that is either on back order from Idle Protein, or the clinic may not carry that at that moment. You'll see what's restricted or not, and you'll be able to then put it in your cart. What we suggest is that you not do it one at a time and then send the order in. You want to list all the things that you want. This is only going to show one item, but I just want to mention that just keep putting all of the things in your cart. And then what you'll do when you're ready is to send that order in. I want to order, and you're going to end up getting this successful receipt so that you know that it's been completed successfully. You're also going to get an order number, and that is what then gets sent to the clinic so that they can be prepared to pull that order ahead of time of your visit. Thank you so much for your time today. And again, if you have any other questions or would like some of that supplemental documentation that I mentioned, the daily optional needs sheet, the fiber document, or the vegetable, please feel free to reach out to your coach and ask them for that. Thank you.